Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. My name is Natalie Armstrong Moton with Marketing Resolution, and today I have back with me one of my favorite guests, Rachel Verk. Hello, Rachel. How are you?
Hello, Natalie. It's good to be back with you.
Thanks very much for joining me today. I want to talk to you. I know that in your book, The 4 Ways of Divorce, you give there it is. You give lots of really good tips to parents about how to manage their divorce. And 2 things that you focus on are the mistakes that we can make as parents, things that make us bad parents during a divorce, and things that make us good or better parents during a divorce. Today we're going to concentrate on a truncated list of mistakes we can make as parents during a divorce. And I know that in your book, my memory is correct, it's a list of 35, but for the purpose of today's video, I know that you've lumped them into sort of a baker's dozen for us.
Yes, because divorce will bring out the best in people or the worst in people. Any conflict brings out the best or the worst in people. And we focused on how to be your best. But the flip side of that is sometimes divorce can bring out the worst in somebody, and you might be on the other end of that. So I'd just like to point out what not to do.
Which is totally fair, because sometimes we get so wrapped up in the divorce that we forget, and we make some fairly simple mistakes, but those little mistakes that we make can actually do some serious harm to our children.
And they can be very strong, pointed, deliberate efforts, not mistakes, by your spouse to do things to punish you, which ultimately winds up punishing the children. And I wouldn't like to say there are things that you, not you personally, Natalie, but one going through a divorce would do, but people do bad things. And it's unfortunate because in the end, it only hurts your kids. You might think you're getting back at somebody or you're strengthening your court case, but what you're really doing is you're just hurting your kids. So don't do it. Stop it. And if your spouse is doing these things, well, then they need to be addressed. So we can get right to it whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, let's jump right in to number 1. I know that there's a tendency to create a bunch of unnecessary drama. Tell me about that.
Some people get so wrapped up in their pain, in what their spouse is doing to them. They're a victim, they're hurt. And I'm not belittling the fact that people can be victimized and hurt and be in pain. But to expose your children to that drama, when they see you crying, when they see unnecessary theatrics or real genuine angst and pain, it hurts them. Please isolate them from your drama. You know, you can get help, and it may not occur to you that your kids can't read self-help books and go sign themselves up for therapy somewhere. So pay attention to them and be aware of what you're exposing them to, because they're going to take on your pain.
Absolutely. Sad cases. So another point that you make is, again, it should be obvious, but it's about bad-mouthing the other parent.
Some people just need to tell everybody that they have been wronged, and she did this to me, and I need to tell his boss and his family and all of our friends how bad a person this person is, and the soccer coach and the scout leader. And, you know, it gets back to your child, and there's no good reason to do that. There just isn't.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. And then I know that it may seem an innocent question to our children. So, hey, who's your dad dating now? Or, hey, tell your dad that, you know, things are going to change. There's a lot of valid damage that's done to children when we ask them to act as a spy or to be a messenger in the course of this divorce. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Honey, take the cell phone. Let's do FaceTime. Okay, let's do FaceTime. But, you know, swivel the camera around and walk through your mommy, daddy's house so I can see what everything looks like and what's going on there. Or tell your father he didn't send enough money this month. Or tell your mother I want to see you next Tuesday after school. Your child should not be your messenger. Your child should not be your spy. And am I sounding judgmental? Yes, I'm judging. There's a right and there's a wrong. I have met with thousands of people over about 30 years. I see the damage people do. I see the kids that get messed up. I see why they're getting messed up. And, you know, when you have to tell the world that daddy is dating, you know, this woman who is breaking up our family, or we're a good Catholic family and your mom is going to burn in hell forever because she's committing adultery, it's not helping your kids. There's a right and there's a wrong. Don't do the wrong thing. The wrong thing is always when you hurt somebody, especially unnecessarily. And the three things we've mentioned so far are examples of unnecessarily hurting your child.
Right. Now, those three things are about poorly communicating, or communication with manipulation, or communication with an ulterior motive. But there's also the reverse, and that is cutting off all communication and trying to cut that spouse out of your child's life.
That's actually a very deliberate act, and it's a very mean thing. And there's a phrase called parental alienation syndrome. And when I see PAS, it's because somebody is angry and they want to pay the other party back for cheating on them or for abandoning them. And they somehow either think love is a zero-sum game, and if their child loves the other party, there's less love for them, or more often than not, they're just being mean and hurtful. And the child wants to talk to a parent, but mom or dad is not letting them. You know, well, we weren't home when you called. Well, I left 5 messages. You could have called back. Well, we were busy. Or they're just never there, or they don't want to allow any contact. They don't want to allow, I hate to use the word visitation. We're trying to get away from that and move more into the phrase having to do with custodial time. But there are parents who deliberately try to keep a child from seeing the other parent. They won't let them talk on the phone. They won't let them spend time. And it just hurts the child. And if the child feels that, let's say mom is mad at dad, and then they express that they love and miss dad, they feel like they're betraying mom or hurting mom. And they're really, really being put in the middle. You know, kids should be able to talk to both of their parents. They're wired to love both parents, even parents who are flawed. They don't need to know all the details of it, but it hurts a child to be cut out of a parent's life.
Right. Well, loving a parent who's flawed takes me to my next question, and that's about how we deal with accepting abuse and the abusive situations, and how we put our children in the middle of those situations and the damage that causes.
Not surprisingly, a lot of marriages end because there is substance abuse that's not being addressed, or mental health issues that are not being addressed, and sometimes there is physical abuse. First of all, if abuse is being tolerated by a spouse and normalized by a spouse, that is as abusive a type of conduct as hitting your child. If you fail to protect your child, you are harming your child. But if a parent has a mental health or substance abuse issue that they are not addressing, the child does need to be protected, but there should be a level of honesty commensurate with the age of the child. Well, right now, daddy has to focus on himself a little bit. Just like we take care of our bodies, we need to take care of our minds. And you know, daddy's having an issue right now. He's upset, he's getting sad, and he needs to talk to the doctor. He may even need to go away for a little while to get better. You might say that to a 5-year-old. Or you might say to a 10-year-old, your father has a problem, or your mother, let's say, has a problem with substance abuse. Your mother is drinking more than she should, and she's unable to control that. And that's a harmful thing. It's harmful to your health. It's harmful to your liver. And right now, because she's not addressing it, you're not safe with her because she may want to drive with you, and that's dangerous. there's nothing wrong with being honest with children. If you lie to them and say, oh, your mom's on a business trip for a week, and it turns into 3 because she's at rehab for 3 months, and the child was lied to, it just hurts, the child's trust in their parent. So commensurate with a child's age, if a parent is addressing a mental health or a substance abuse issue, they should be told, it's a good thing your mom, dad is addressing these issues. But if mom or dad is not addressing them, we love your mom, we love your dad, but they have this problem right now that they should address. They're not addressing it. And until they do address it, we're not able to see them except when we're at this place with other people, or unless grandma's there, or it's only on the phone. Because, you don't want to scare the child too much, but honesty is an important thing. I have had cases where there was a lot of harm and negativity and damage and really bad things that happened because of mental health and substance abuse issues. The child's going to notice something's wrong. Be honest with them from the beginning. So there is a difference between bad mouthing and being honest, and protecting your child and not protecting your child. And again, if you are not protecting a child who's being physically or verbally abused, you are abusing them just the same. Daddy didn't, you didn't put daddy in jail because, let me rephrase that. Mommy might feel that she doesn't want to call the police because she's putting daddy in jail. No, daddy put himself in jail because of the conduct that he engaged in. If daddy hits a child and mom does, in a bad way, and mom does not protect the child by calling the police and having him charged with family assault and getting a restraining order, she's normalizing that. She's saying it's okay. Oh, well, we don't want to put daddy in jail. No. Daddy's putting himself in jail. And there's a right and there's a wrong. And again, abuse is wrong. Tolerating it is wrong.
Absolutely. And you don't want the child to feel betrayed by additional lies on top of a bad situation. So, there's another point that you make, and that's about schools and manipulating school locations or school enrollments or school choices or school pickups and drop-offs, and how that can really stress a child, unduly stress a child.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to, I have about 5 examples that come to mind right away. I'm not going to give those specific examples because clients could recognize themselves, but just in a general sense, when you're rushing to the bus stop to grab the child before the other parent right before spring break, or you're rushing to the daycare to grab the child before the other parent can because you don't want them to have the child over the weekend, or you're rushing the week before school or 3 days before school to try to enroll your child in another school district because you know that there's going to be a contest about which parent should have the right to enroll the child in their school district. So you're trying to beat the other parent out. These are just a few examples. People will try to jockey for a favorable position in court. And yes, there are things that can help or hurt a case. But when you engage in this kind of snatching of the child, rushing to enroll the child when the child isn't prepared, might even have, what we call an individualized education program. I've had a number of cases where child has a team of people, working with them year after year. And I've had a number of cases where parents want to take the child away from the school they've been at and put the child elsewhere. I can think of 3 off the top of my head where this has occurred. So it hurts your child when you're grabbing them, when you're relocating them, when they haven't had any chance to adapt. They've already had to adapt to a parent not being there all the time, and now all of a sudden they know that at a moment's notice what they thought they were going to do at the end of the day has changed, or the school they thought they were going to attend all of a sudden with all their friends is no longer going to be the school where they're at. You're just hurting your kids. If you're going to have a custody case, and there's reasons to have a custody case, maybe, if you can't work it out and you're going to go to court, at least do it in an orderly fashion. But to try to grab your child and do all these other things without your child knowing what's going on is just hurting your child. You're just hurting your child.
Right. Now, when custody is an issue, obviously changes are going to be made. One parent is going to leave, or the family home will get sold and everybody gets a new house or everybody gets a new apartment. And we all know as adults that when you move, when you have your home in an upheaval like that, it can be stressful, even for us, even during a normal, healthy, day-to-day existence. But when that happens in a divorce, when either everybody has to move or one parent has to move, that also can become a platform for one parent to make some bad choices.
Yeah, and there's a couple of thoughts here. There are a lot of people who act nobly. And let me give the example of, very common example, guy moves out, wants to keep mom in the house with the kids. He's staying at a basement apartment on a couch at a buddy's house. And he's a little bit embarrassed about that. And he doesn't want the kids to know. So he doesn't even take the kids to where he is. And the children might be 5, 6, 7, 8, too young to articulate this vague sense of uneasiness. All they know is dad just left and disappeared and fell off the face of the earth. It may not occur to people, put your kid in a car, drive to where dad is staying, show them the basement couch that he's living on at his buddy's house, so the child at least knows, oh, it only took maybe, they don't know what 10 minutes is, but it didn't take very long. Daddy's not so far away. It didn't take 4 hours to drive there. You know, it's just around the corner, down the street, a few, streets over, and he's okay. Your child isn't judging the quality of your temporary housing and isn't thinking any less of dad because he's not in a big house or big apartment or whatever. Child just needs to be able to picture dad, know that dad's okay, have some vague idea of how far away dad is. And it's important for the child to do that. Now, you don't want to go run a bunch of errands, get some ice cream, and then drop by dad's new place. Because, again, the child has maybe no real sense of how far away from his or her home dad is. So on one level, it is important to see where dad is. Also, let's say it's dad who moved out. Well, maybe in the beginning, the 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old wants to spend a lot more time with dad than they might otherwise, mainly because they miss dad and they want to know that dad's not going away, that dad's still there. And it might fall into a 50-50 thing or a long extended weekend kind of arrangement for custody. But if that child wants to see dad every single day after school, just to know that they can, because they're getting used to the fact that dad's not there every single night, and every single morning, but they want to spend a couple hours before dinner or maybe even several dinners a week. But mom feels, oh, we can't set the precedent of, you seeing dad every single day because I don't want him to go to court and say that he wants to see you every single day because I don't want him to have you every single day. Sometimes in the beginning, a child does need to see the parent who moved out a lot more than they might ultimately. Maybe it is going to turn into an every other Thursday to Monday morning thing. But if they need to see dad Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for a week or two before that happens, why punish your child? They just need to be reassured that dad didn't go away. And on occasion, it's mom who moves out and dad is taking care of the children. And, same thing applies. That child might need to see mom that much more, and dad should let them.
Yeah, these transitions can be really difficult, and we don't want to make them even more difficult for our children because it's not their fault. We don't want to punish them for the choices that we've made in our lives. And one of the hard transitions for a lot of divorced or divorcing parents is the introduction of a new love interest. And again, it's sad that people can use their ex-spouse or their soon-to-be ex-spouse's new love interest as a weapon.
Yeah, there are a lot of different layers to how to view, quote, the paramour of your ex-to-be, as I call them. I'm going to focus on just one. Sometimes a child is not ready really to see dad's new girlfriend. and maybe dad's spending a whole lot of time with his new girlfriend, even when dad has the children with him. And the children feel a little bit neglected, or they don't like that person. Now, they might not like that person because mom is saying, you know, that person broke up our family and all this kind of stuff. Or they may just not like them and they're not comfortable around them. And it's unfortunate when, you know, somebody, male or female, is spending a lot of time with their new love interest when they really should be focusing that time on their child. There are some women that, you know, hitting 40, 45, kind of feel life pass them by. This is their last shot, and they're out there and dating. And maybe there's a series of guys. Does the child really need to see all these guys? You know, no. And maybe it's just one guy. And maybe the child really gets, this is a different concept here, maybe gets to like that person. Then all of a sudden mom isn't seeing them anymore. And now it's like they lost somebody all over again. And I said I'd only focus on one thing. Okay, I'm actually going into 2 or 3 other areas. An additional area. Let's say mom says, you know, there shall be no exposure to significant others, period, none. Well, let's say dad is going to marry that person that he's been seeing for quite a long time. Does mom really expect it to look like, oh, here's your new stepmother? I mean, at some point, if there's going to be a remarriage, you know, the child does have to get to know that person over some period of time. So what I'll often do in my cases, and often in mediations, we come up with language along the lines of, neither party shall expose the children to any individuals with whom they are romantically involved for a period of at least 6 months of being in an exclusive, committed relationship with that person. Shall not travel overnight with such person unless in a serious, committed, exclusive relationship of at least, as I mentioned, 6 months. And won't have that person in the home for at least 1 hour before the child goes to bed, or 1 hour after the child wakes up. So it's not like, you know, good night, dad, good night, random person, good morning, dad, good morning, random person. We used to talk about not cohabiting in the presence of the children. And I've had cases where people, oh, we didn't cohabit, we were in different bedrooms or different hotel rooms or different tents, or, well, he left at 2:30 and slept in his car till 5:30 in the driveway or down the road, and then came back at 5:30. You know, let's not play games, okay? Children sometimes really don't benefit from being exposed to a relationship. They're getting used to mom or dad fighting or being distant or not affectionate, and then mom and dad separating, and now mom or dad is showing affection with another person. You know, it's a lot. Give them time. And this idea of not exposing the children to anyone unless in a serious, committed, exclusive relationship of at least 6 months, we also add, but in any event, not prior to entry of a divorce order. Dad might have been seeing that person for 8 months during the marriage or during the separation. That doesn't mean that prior to the divorce, you know, all of a sudden the child should be exposed. So to kind of give it an overall understanding, children may not be ready to be exposed. It may upset them to be exposed. However, at some point, it may be appropriate for them to be exposed. And when that time comes, it is not appropriate for the other parent to badmouth that person, because now the child feels like they're betraying the parent who likes the new love interest. If they get along with them, you know, they're betraying the parent who doesn't like them. And if they don't like them, they're betraying the parent who does like them. And they're just caught in the middle. Yeah. So be adult, be mature, don't put your kids in the middle.
Yeah, it just becomes Shakespearean and not good. So
sorry, that was a long answer. No, there's so many layers to that.
That's all right. This is really important information. Absolutely imperative that you know, that we share this with people. The whole point of this video is to help people identify those things that we do or say or ask of our children, or those things that we don't do or we don't say or we don't ask of our children that do them, you know, harm. And that's what we really want to avoid. So one of the things I know that you bring up in your book that can cause trauma or damage or hurt your kids or your relationship with your kids or your spouse's relationship with your kids is when after or during a divorce, one party or another has to move some distance away for whatever reason, for work or whatever the case may be. And the ultimate negativity that can come from that particular situation of having to move some distance away.
It's very painful if a parent moves away with the children from the parent who's staying. It's very harmful if the parent who is not the primary custodial parent moves away from the kids. If there's a really good reason, a deployment, or maybe, mom, let's say, has been the primary caretaker, didn't finish her degree, doesn't have a career established, really needs to, quote, move back home and get the support and the daycare assistance and finish her degree and get a job, sometimes it's unavoidable. But if it's not unavoidable, you brought these kids into the world. Kids need two parents. Why are you moving away from your kid? Why are you moving your kid or children away from the other parent? Why are you making them into somebody who only really has one parent? If it's essential, there are ways to try to increase time over summers or holidays. But again, that's a sad thing because your child may be living during the school year with all their friends, and now the happy summer's coming. They want to spend time with their friends. Oh, wait, now they have to go live across the country for a summer where they don't know anybody to, see their parent. If you bring your kids into this world, ideally, you will find a way to live near them, both of you, until they're ready to go off to college, if you're fortunate enough to be able to send them to college and they want to go, or at least until they're done with high school. Why are you looking for jobs 4 states over? You might make more money going 4 states over, but you know what? Maybe it's better that you make less money or work 2 jobs and stay right where you are, where your children can have the benefit of 2 parents. Yeah. So it's just a sad, sad thing. Occasionally I've had cases, a very tiny minority, where a parent literally walked away from their kids for good, goes to another country, doesn't come back. Had a number of those. It's unbelievable. Those people are not watching this video and thinking, okay, I guess I shouldn't do that. But if you are watching this video, just think about, why are you taking your child away from the other parent? Or why are you leaving your kids? Don't do it. Find a way to make it work.
Yeah, then it goes from, my parents divorced to my mother left me. Or my father left me. Now I'm rejected. Yeah. Now as a child. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I mean, the hit to their self-esteem is irreparable. Absolutely irreparable. They think they're not worthy of being loved, and that carries over into their adulthood and their relationships. You are damaging your children's future.
Sure. Because if your parents don't love you, you stand no chance with any of the rest of us. Right. So the next point that you make is, again, one of those sort of tricky things, I think, and primarily based upon the age and maturity level of the child. And the next point that you make is whether or not or how deeply you should involve your children in how a divorce works. How does the court work? How does the system work?
A 5-year-old might just need to know that mommy or daddy are going to get a piece of paper signed by a judge saying they're not married anymore, right? That's maybe all a 5-year-old needs to know. What is a divorce? Oh, it's a judge signing a piece of paper saying that we're not married anymore, but we'll always be your parents. That will never change. Is it right to show your 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old all the court papers, all the allegations, all the deposition transcripts, tell them about all the court hearings? No, that's wrong. Is it right to take your kids to meet the lawyer and go to the lawyer's office for no reason? No, they don't need to know who the lawyer is and what the office looks like. Is it right to take your kids to court when they're little? Why? Why are you doing that? Is it appropriate to tell maybe a teenager, we just haven't been able to work this out ourselves. We need the court to help us. The judge is going to make a decision on such and such a day. Okay, maybe that's appropriate. The judge is going to make a decision on such and such a day. Now, it's hanging over your child's head until that day. They're going to be all upset about it, and then they're going to want to know exactly what happened. So divorce is a very delicate process. You hopefully will find a seasoned attorney who can help you navigate not only the court process, but how to conduct yourself through it, how to not hurt your children. A good therapist, child psychologist, couple consults there might help you understand the effect that you're having and what to do and what not to do. But when you're talking about having your child come to court and things like this, it isn't necessarily a good thing.
Right. And of course, we can always be good humans. And when a child says you're going back to court again, or you're going back to a mediator again, you can always say, you know, we want to be the best parents we can be. Yes, we're divorcing, but we really want to negotiate the best possible way for us to be parents together. And that's why we're going back for another meeting. They don't need to know all the dirty details about what's going on privately. And so you can always choose the high road and say, yes, we're going to go see the mediator again, because it's really important that we're good parents and we want to get this right because we all love you. So you can always...
You raise an interesting thing. We've been talking about things not to do and negative things. The flip side, which we're not really doing today in our discussion, the flip side of all the negativity is what is the correct and positive thing to do. We can talk about parenting coordinators. We can talk about ways to phrase things in a positive light. And that's a whole nother discussion. But understand that although we're talking about things not to do and negative things, obviously there's a flip side to all of that, which would be how to do it appropriately and the correct way to act.
Right. And you and I know that, you know, personally, because we're friends and colleagues, you and I always prefer the positive route. We always prefer, you know, to go that direction as opposed to the negative. And so for anyone watching, look on this channel and you will find a list of positive things that you can do. So these are the negatives, but be sure you click over to the video that gives you all of the positive things to do, because those are far more important. So the next one that I wanted to ask you about is when we've got the visitation worked out and we're making the exchange, a lot of parents use that moment, that visitation exchange moment, as a way to really punish the other spouse. And to have your child watch that exchange or have a parent manipulate that exchange, it's just a horrible thing to do.
Yeah, and again, without regaling you with examples and stories and whatnot, sometimes it's necessary for parents not to have any contact during the custodial exchange, not to converse. You know, it's almost like the door opens, okay, go ahead and go out to the car. Sometimes there's a need for a car seat and carrying belongings for very young children. But for older children, sometimes there's just this pass off. Other times for people who have not been chastised by a judge and ordered to keep their distance and not communicate. Prior to that, it's what has happened to cause a judge to say have no contact and discussion is because prior to that, they're hollering at each other, they're yelling at each other, they're causing scenes. You know, there might be scenes around special holidays and birthdays, and that scars a child into adulthood. You know, why am I 30 years old and every time around Christmas or Thanksgiving, I start getting really upset and angry and anxious? Oh yeah, it's because for 4 years when I was a young child, my folks are always threatening to go to court or going to court or fighting about who should have Thanksgiving and how we should divide Christmas. And there were so many fights and arguments about my birthday, and he or she wanted to spend time with me on my birthday, but it was the other parent's time to have me. And they just are so damaged by conflict around holidays and birthdays and the exchanges. And she's living with her mother and father, and they're angry at him. So when he goes to get the child, they're there, and the in-laws, the ex-in-laws are causing problems and things. It's really unfortunate when it can't just be, okay, go get in the car with mommy now, or okay, daddy's here. That's what it should be. And when it's not, it's really unfortunate. And also a parent who doesn't show up or is always late. You know, the stereotypical child sitting on the doorway holding his or her backpack, waiting to spend the weekend with the other parent who never shows. Or you're waiting. They're so anxious and they're always 15, 20 minutes late because they're trying to mess up the other parent, you know, because they have to be somewhere. If you're stuck in traffic, you can let the other side know. But when it's a habit, when it's habitual, when it's just the common thing, why are you hurting your child? If you're supposed to be there at 6 o'clock on Thursday, be there at 6 o'clock on Thursday. And let's not have a big fight about why are you late, or why didn't you send me a check, or why didn't you pick up the phone when I called? Why are you having those fights right when you're passing off your kids?
Right. Well, so you made a couple of points earlier about holidays and special events, but that leads me to my next point about sports and school events and proms and weddings and all of those important milestones in a child's life. And I know that a lot of people take advantage of those situations also.
You know, again, without giving numerous examples, it's really unfortunate if your child is playing soccer and it's, quote, mom's day, and dad wants to see the game, and dad is there and he's got his mom and his dad, and they want to see the child, and the child has mom on one side of the field and dad on the other side of the field, and mom doesn't want the child to acknowledge dad or get a hug from dad or go say hi to the other grandparents. If your child is at a sporting event or an extracurricular activity, they want the benefit of both parents. Why are you creating drama at the soccer field? And flip side of that, let's say your child loves playing, I'll just stick with soccer, and mom signed the child up for soccer, but you know, some of the games are on, quote, dad's weekends. Well, dad doesn't want to take the child because it's his time with the child, but the child wants to do soccer. Now, to deliberately schedule an activity on, let's say, Tuesday, which is dad's day, which you could have scheduled that violin lesson on Wednesday, you know, why are you doing that? Don't schedule something deliberately on the other parent's time. But if the child is in karate or the child is playing a sport and there are practices and there are games and the rest of the team is counting on that child and that child wants to be a star, why are you saying, no, you don't have the right to decide what happens on my time? And why are you creating drama at all those activities and you know, fun things for your child? It just hurts your child.
Exactly. So the next point I want to ask about is, now we talked about bad mouthing earlier, but the last point number 13 in our baker's dozen for today's video, is about mudslinging. And how is mudslinging different than bad mouthing?
Some people feel that whether they're telling the whole rest of the world, all the mutual former friends and all the family and the teachers and the coaches and the scout leaders, you know, some people have to tell all the world how bad the other parent is. And some people feel that what they need to do is go to court with their big long list and say all these terrible things about their spouse. And when you do that to your spouse, ultimately it's going to hurt your kid, because your spouse is going to be so angry at you for doing all that. Are those allegations true? Did they really do a lot of that? Maybe, probably, perhaps. Are you blameless? Maybe not. Did you condone or create some of that? Possibly. It's rare that somebody is entirely without fault or entirely a victim of circumstance. We make decisions. Accept the consequences of your decisions. But to think that you're going to go to court and sling mud, here's the newsflash. Judges don't want to hear that. What they want to hear in a custody case is all the positives that you're going to do for your child. Why is it in your child's best interest to live more with you, or primarily with you, or to have this amount of time with you? Why is it in your child's best interest? What can you offer the child? What have you historically done for the child? What do you do to make your child's life good? It's not about, judge, this guy, gal is so terrible and they did all these terrible things to me and us and everything, and therefore they shouldn't have custody. Literally, the judge is kind of tuning that out. The judge wants to know, what is it that you're doing on each side. What is the other side doing? Maybe what is the other side not doing as it relates to the child? But I've had judges say, you know, well, that abuse or that whatever that occurred, that's, quote, I had a judge say, baggage from the marriage. They will say, you're not living together anymore. All that conflict you had, it's not there anymore because you're in two different homes. What is it that you're going to do for your kids? So when you sling mud, hoping some of it'll stick, the judge in court isn't usually as impressed by that as you might think. And when you turn everybody outside of court against the other parent, ultimately it hurts the child. So it all boils down to divorce, like any conflict, will bring out the best in a person or the worst in a person. Right. Take this opportunity for some introspection, for some self-growth, for some acceptance of the responsibility for the situation you've created. Do not create this tempest and expect your child to just calmly sail through it, because they can't. You brought them into the world. Be the best you can be. Help your child. Focus on them, not the other parent, and grow from the experience. You're going to create a two-home family. Tell your child, we have a two-home family. You got a home with mom, you got a home with dad. Move forward. And that's the best gift you can give your child.
That's really excellent advice, and I love that we ended on a positive note. Rachel Virk, the book, 4 Ways of Divorce. Of course, I'll put the link in the description bar down below. There's the book. That's the cover that you want to look for on Rachel's site or on Amazon. But excellent points. So if you have these concerns or issues in your life, or you know someone who's going through a divorce, be sure that you forward this video, share the information, and help all of us be better humans. Rachel, again, thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Natalie. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
All right, excellent. I'll talk to you soon. And everybody, don't forget, look for that video with all the positives.